All right, buckle up, everybody, because today we are going deep, deep into a topic I think we all struggle with. Choices.
Choices.
Or maybe not even just choices, but like
the sheer number.
the sheer volume
Yes.
of choices.
That we face all the time.
On a daily basis, you know that feeling, right? Like when you're standing in the grocery store.
Oh, I know that feeling.
And you're like looking at
I know
85 different kinds of crackers.
Just
or like 285 different kinds of cookies.
too much.
Like how
can
am I
you
supposed to pick?
You can't even decide.
I can't even decide.
Right.
So it turns out there's like a whole field of research.
Yeah. Oh, man.
A whole bunch of research on this.
So we are diving deep today into Barry Schwartz's book,
The Paradox of Choice.
The Paradox of Choice. Why more is less?
Why more is less?
Because it kind of feels like the more choices we have.
You think it would make us happier? The less happy we are.
But it kind of doesn't.
It kind of does it.
It's funny because you would think
Right.
more options.
More options means...
You're more likely to find the thing that you want.
Exactly. More freedom, more autonomy, the ability to like
craft your perfect life.
Craft the perfect life, get exactly what you want. But Schwartz really digs into...
He digs into the nitty-gritty of
Yeah.
how we actually make choices.
The psychology of choice.
The psychology of choice.
And all these kind of like
mental shortcuts and pitfalls and...
Yeah, and like hidden biases and things.
Yeah, and how those things can actually make us less happy.
Even when we're making good choices.
Even when we're objectively making good choices.
So to kind of paint a picture for our listeners.
Okay.
Schwartz opens the book with this example of going to the supermarket.
Right, yeah.
And he's like...
85 different kinds of crackers.
85 different types of crackers.
285 varieties of cookies.
285 different kinds of cookies. 75 different pain relievers.
Who knew?
Like, you would think there would just be like two...
I don't even know if I've ever...
Right, like Tylenol or Advil. Right.
Taken 75 different pain relievers in my life.
Right.
It's just mind-boggling.
It is, and that's just the supermarket. You know, we're talking about groceries.
And it's not...
What about...
Even just groceries.
Right.
What about picking a college course?
Oh, yeah.
Or what do you want to do with your life?
Your career, how to invest your money.
Your retirement plan.
Yeah, healthcare, dating. It's like every
single part of our life.
Of life now is like
It's like
choose your own adventure.
Just endless choices.
Endless choices. And it's like...
That's a relatively new phenomenon, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
We didn't used to have 85 different types of crackers to choose from.
Right.
You know, like back in the day, there were like 3...
Like you got your saltines.
Socially, economically.
Yeah.
We've really shifted.
We've shifted.
Where
there were just kind of defaults.
Default options to this.
You got your one option, or you didn't get anything.
You didn't get it.
And now it's like...
Now it's like... You're in charge. You decide.
You're empowered to pick from all these options.
From hundreds of things.
Hundreds of things.
And again, that has been driven by so many factors.
Yeah.
You know, deregulation, technology, and just this idea that, well, more choice equals more freedom.
Yeah.
Or equals more happiness.
Yeah, more freedom.
But it's not always that simple.
It's not that simple.
As Schwartz points out.
So I think one of the things that he does really well is he like breaks down what's actually going on.
What's happening in our brains.
Our brains.
Yeah.
When we're faced with all these choices.
Yeah.
And so he talks about
this concept of adaptation.
Adaptation, which is like that
our
tendency to get used to things.
Get used to stuff. And then we need more to
to
feel that same level of satisfaction.
Like when we get a new car and we're like, oh my God, this is amazing.
This is the best car ever.
But then like
2 weeks later, it's just your car.
2 weeks later, it's just your car.
Right. And you need a nicer car.
It's like, well, now I needed
to feel that same
nicer car to feel that same
level of excitement.
Joy.
Yeah.
And then there's regret.
Oh, regret. The what ifs.
The what
Did I make the right choice?
Like, oh, if I had just picked that other cracker, my life would be so much better right now.
Or the other job, or the other house.
Right. And then, of course,
we can't forget that social constraint.
Keeping up with the Joneses.
Keeping up with the Joneses, right.
Seeing what everybody else is doing, what they're buying, what they're choosing.
Yeah, and it's like, well, if they have that, I need to have that.
Uh-huh. Right.
Or if they're making that choice, I need to be making that choice. Because clearly they know something I don't.
Right.
Yeah, and all that leads to decision fatigue.
Yeah.
Anxiety, and just like less satisfaction.
Yeah, and the thing is, even when we're
objectively making good choices.
Like objectively good choices, we're
still not happy.
We're still not as happy as we could be.
It's almost like...
It's like counterintuitive, right?
Like we have all this choice.
We have all this choice.
And yet, we're miserable.
And yet, we're less happy.
Yeah.
It's wild.
It really is.
I was reading about...
What were you reading about?
this study where they showed people like a huge display of jams,
Okay.
like tons and tons of different jams,
Uh-huh.
and then a smaller selection of jams.
Like just a few.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the people who saw the smaller selection of jams were actually more likely to buy jam.
Oh, wow. That's interesting.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, it's like
So you're telling me
the more choice actually made them less likely to choose anything.
less likely to choose anything at all?
Yeah, and I think that illustrates just how easily our brains can get overloaded.
Yeah, it's like our brains just can't
They can't process all of that.
process all that information.
When there are too many options, like
Yeah.
I can't make a decision.
I can't even.
I'm overwhelmed, so I'm just going to shut down.
You know what? That is totally me when I'm trying to pick something on Netflix.
Oh, yeah, Netflix is a perfect example.
I'm like
Just rolling through, like, thousands of titles.
thousands of titles.
Yeah.
And then I'm just like,
And you end up watching Friends again?
I end up watching Friends or like
Something you've seen 100 times.
something I've seen a million times because I get overwhelmed.
I get it, and it highlights
Yeah.
this need to, like,
Yeah.
develop strategies.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about strategy.
Yeah, for managing.
Or how to deal with this.
For managing this choice overload.
Yeah, this overload.
So that
force.
we're not just, like, drained and dissatisfied.
So we're not just ending up watching Friends all the time.
Yeah, exactly. Or just feeling paralyzed.
Because that's no good.
That's no good.
So how do we
do that?
actually like escape this paradox of choice?
Well, one of the key insights from Schwartz's work
Uh-huh.
is the distinction between two types of decision makers,
Okay.
maximizers and satisficers.
Let's unpack those terms.
Yes, let's unpack those. Okay, so we've got these two types,
Maximizers and satisficers.
maximizers and satisficers.
And you're probably like, well, how do I...
Which one am I?
Which one am I? And how do I...
And if I'm a maximizer, how do I stop?
How do I like...
How do I chill out?
How do I get to be more of a satisficer?
Right.
Because it sounds like the satisficers...
They're onto something.
They're onto something.
They are.
They've got it figured out.
They're having a good time.
Yeah, they're like, this is fine, good enough.
Right, exactly. And it's not about, like, lowering your standards.
Yeah, it's not
Or
just...
settling.
But
It's just recognizing that good enough
is good
is
enough.
good enough.
It's oftentimes
often
more than enough
Yeah.
to actually be happy.
like to get through life and be happy.
So
yeah.
it's easier said than done, though.
Oh, for sure. Way easier said than done.
Because we're like surrounded by all these messages.
All of the time.
All the time that it's like, be the best.
Be the best. You got to optimize. You got to
You
achieve.
got to achieve. Be more productive.
Yeah.
Have it all.
Yeah.
It's like, no wonder we all feel like we're falling short.
Right, because the goalposts keep moving.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But Schwartz offers some, like, really helpful
Yeah.
practical advice, I think.
Okay, give it to me. What's
Yeah.
like the first step?
One of his big suggestions is just like, be mindful.
Be mindful.
Be mindful of your choices.
Okay.
Not every decision needs to be
Yeah.
like a dissertation.
Right.
You know,
It's not life or death.
like sometimes it's okay to just go with your gut.
Or just like flip a coin. You never.
Flip a coin,
Or just like,
delegate it to someone else.
yeah, delegate. Like you pick.
You pick, I don't care.
Or just like pick the default
Yeah,
option.
the default, like whatever. Yeah, because how much time do we waste?
Oh my God, so much time.
Agonizing over things that don't even matter.
On things that like ultimately.
In the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, like in the grand scheme of things.
It's just not a big deal.
It's not a big deal.
But if we can free up those mental resources
Yeah, if we free up those mental resources.
from like agonizing over what kind of coffee maker to buy,
Right. Like I don't need to.
we can spend that time on things that actually,
Yeah, on things that actually bring us joy.
on the things that really matter.
Okay, so that's like being more mindful, choosing when to choose.
Right. Choosing when to choose.
What else? What else does Schwartz suggest?
Also talks about like setting limits on the number of options.
Okay, limits. I like that.
Like instead of trying to research every
A
single,
single option.
yeah,
Every single.
brand, every single model.
Yeah, just be like
Just be like, I'm going to look at 3 different laptops
3 different laptops.
and that's it.
That's it.
And just pick from those 3.
Because I feel this.
Because otherwise you get to that research phase
Oh, I live in the research phase.
where you're just like endlessly clicking on tabs
endlessly clicking on tabs.
and reading reviews.
And I'm just like, oh my God, but this one has this feature, but this one has this feature.
Right. And by the end of it, you're just exhausted.
Exhausted. I mean,
You're like, I don't even want a laptop anymore.
I don't even want a laptop anymore.
I'm just going to stick with my old one.
This is fine.
Yeah.
Okay, so setting limits, choosing when to choose.
Choosing when to choose.
What about this idea of like embracing
Embracing good enough.
good enough?
Yeah.
Like, how do we actually...
It starts with like recognizing that perfection is,
It's an illusion.
it's an illusion. It's not real.
It doesn't exist.
Doesn't exist.
Like there's
probably not.
there's no such thing as the perfect
The perfect anything.
anything.
And even if there was,
yeah.
you probably wouldn't even know it.
You probably wouldn't even be able to
Recognize it. Right.
So it's
So just focus on finding something
yeah,
that meets your basic
needs
needs,
and
preferences, and just ask yourself,
Is this good enough?
is this good enough for what I need it to do?
Yeah.
Is it going to get the job done?
Like, It doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to
It just has to function.
function.
Right. And honestly, a lot of times, the relief of just making a decision and moving on
Oh, that's such a good point.
outweighs, like,
Yeah.
the potential benefits of
Like,
continuing to search for.
but what if there's something slightly better?
What if I could find one that's like 1% better?
Yeah, that's 1% better. Is it really worth
Is it worth the extra
Oh, the
5 hours of research?
5 hours? Yeah, all the mental anguish.
All the anguish, right.
Okay, so I'm like on board
Okay.
with this good enough
Philosophy?
philosophy.
Yeah.
But what about like
What about
the regret?
The regret, yeah.
What about that social comparison?
Keeping up with the Joneses?
Yeah, like how do we deal with those pesky little...
Those are the tough ones.
Those are the tough.
Those are the hard ones to shake.
Yeah.
Well, one thing Schwartz talks about is
Mm-hmm.
just like learning to be more grateful.
Grateful.
Grateful for the things we do have.
Yeah, it's so easy.
It's so easy to focus on what's wrong.
Yeah, to be like, but I wish it had this. I wish it did this.
This could be better if it only had this.
Yeah.
Yeah, but if we can take the time to be like, you know what? This is actually pretty great.
I'm pretty lucky to have this.
I'm lucky to have this.
It shifts your whole
It shifts your whole perspective.
perspective.
Yeah. And it kind of ties into that idea of the hedonic treadmill,
Oh, yeah, the hedonic treadmills.
where we're constantly like
Constantly
chasing
on.
more and more and more.
Yeah, we get the thing, and then it's like, okay, well, now I need the next thing.
Now I need the next
Now I need the better thing.
to feel happy again.
Yeah.
Yeah, but if we can just be content with what we have
Yeah.
and be grateful for what we have,
It's like shifting
shifting from a scarcity mindset
from a scarcity mindset to an abundance mindset.
to an abundance mindset, yes.
Like, I have enough. I am enough.
Yeah.
This is enough.
Exactly.
Right.
And then there's
And then there's social comparison, which is
social comparison.
the big one.
Big one.
Big one.
Especially in the age
Social media.
where everybody is curating their perfect lives.
They're perfect. Yeah, it's just highlight reels.
Highlight reels, yeah.
All the time.
Yeah.
And you're just like, well, why don't I have that?
Why isn't my life that perfect?
What am I doing wrong?
Right.
Yeah.
So how do we
How do we...
even begin to combat that?
Well, I think it starts with just being mindful.
Okay, mindful again.
Mindful of like how social media makes us feel.
Yeah, if you're scrolling through Instagram and you're just feeling
Bad about yourself.
bad about yourself.
Yeah, inadequate.
Like, why doesn't my kitchen look like that?
Or jealous.
Jealous. Yeah, like all those negative feelings. It's like, maybe I need to
Maybe you need to
unfollow some people.
unfollow some accounts.
Or take a break.
Take a break.
Just like be more conscious
Yeah, just be conscious of how it's affecting.
of how it's impacting you.
Because remember, comparison is the thief of joy.
Ooh, that's a good one.
It really is.
Comparison is the thief of joy.
Instead of comparing yourself to others, just focus on your own
Focus on your own journey.
your own path, your
Yeah.
own goals, your own values.
Your own values. Yeah. Okay. So we've got be mindful.
Be mindful.
Set limits. Set limits. Embrace good enough.
Embrace good enough.
Cultivate gratitude.
Great gratitude.
And curb the social comparison.
Curb that social comparison.
Anything else?
What else does Schwartz say?
He also talks about like a de-escalating.
Escalating.
Yeah, like taking it down a notch.
Okay.
Our expectations.
For expectations.
Yeah, because in a world where we're told we can have it all,
we can have it all.
we can do it all, be it all,
Be perfect.
be perfect, easy to set these like crazy high expectations.
Crazy high expectations for ourselves.
Yeah,
And then feel like a failure when we don't meet them,
right.
which is pretty much inevitable.
Which is most of the time, right?
Yeah.
So Schwartz is like, hey, maybe we should just like
Chill out a little.
chill out and like have a more realistic
Realist-
idea of what a good life actually looks like.
What it actually looks like.
Yeah.
Like,
It's not about
Yeah.
reaching this like pinnacle of perfection.
right, this like
I can see that right
imaginary,
there.
idealized
Yeah.
destination of
Yeah.
perfect happiness.
Perfect happiness. It's like,
It's about
yeah.
finding joy in the everyday moments.
Yeah.
And appreciating the little things.
Appreciating the little things.
Yeah. The small victories.
Yeah.
The connections.
Yeah.
The beauty and like the imperfections of life.
Exactly.
It's like that's where the real
joy is.
the real joy is.
Right.
It's not in like the perfect Instagram post. It's
Right.
in like
It's in like
the messy, chaotic
the messy reality.
everyday life.
Okay, and then last but not least,
Okay.
Schwartz talks about the importance of like embracing.
Embracing.
Yeah, like accepting
Okay.
the irreversibility of
The
decision.
irreversibility of decisions. Okay.
So, like in a world where
we have endless options.
we have endless options, it's easy to be like,
Oh, but what
if,
ifs?
what if, what if,
Yeah.
what if?
What ifs?
The what ifs will kill
They
these.
can be crippling.
Yeah, they really can.
Yeah, they really can.
But he's saying like we should just
He's saying like learn to accept
the choice.
that like once the decision
That's
is
done,
made
it's done.
and move on
Done.
and dwell, don't look back.
Yeah, because
It's like that sunk cost fallacy or something.
yeah, and it's not about like
Yeah.
erasing regret. It's just about like
yeah.
recognizing it.
Like, okay, I regret that.
I made this decision.
Yeah.
You can't change it.
It is what it is.
It is what it is.
Let's move forward.
Let's move on.
Yeah, because all that dwelling does is it just
It just prevents you from
Yeah.
enjoying the present
And
moment.
enjoying the present moment. And it's almost like,
It's like we're trading peace of mind for this like illusion of control.
the illusion of
Like,
control.
oh, if I just keep thinking about it,
Yeah.
maybe I can change it.
Maybe I can go back and undo it.
Or maybe I can find a better option.
Yeah, but it's like, no, you can't.
No, you can't. So just
let it go.
Let it go. Move on.
Okay, I'm trying. I'm working on it.
We're all working on it. Yeah, it's like we think if we just keep ruminating on it, we can somehow like
change the past.
Yeah, change the past. But we can't.
But you can't. So just
accept it.
Accept it. Move on.
Move on and focus on making the most of the choice you did make.
Yeah. It's powerful stuff.
It is. And I think it's a really hopeful message, you know?
Yeah.
Like we actually do have more control than we think over how happy we go.
Over our own happiness.
It's not about like finding the perfect job or the perfect house or the perfect partner.
Right.
It's about choosing to approach our choices.
With intention.
With intention, mindfulness. And like a healthy dose of
self-compassion.
Self-compassion.
So as we wrap up our deep dive here into the paradox of choice.
What have we learned?
What have we learned?
What are some takeaways?
What are some takeaways for our listeners?
Well, I think like the first step is just being aware of like what kind of decision maker you are.
Maximizer or satisficer?
Maximizer or satisficer.
Knowing yourself, right?
Yeah, know myself.
Know thyself, exactly.
If you know that you tend towards maximizing, you can start putting those strategies in place.
Right, so that you don't
spiral.
Get caught in that spiral of
the endless research.
Yeah, the comparison, the regret.
Set those limits. Embrace good enough. You know,
practice that gratitude.
Practice gratitude.
Yeah, and if you're a natural satisficer, then like own it.
Own it. You've got to figure out.
You're already ahead of the game.
You are.
Maybe share your wisdom with some of your maximizer friends.
Help us out.
Help us out, yeah, because it's almost like a superpower.
It is. It's like
to just be able to be like,
just make a decision to move on.
Good enough. Let's go.
And be happy about it.
Yeah, be happy about it. I love that.
And even if you are like a diehard maximizer, it doesn't mean you're doomed.
No, you're not doomed. There's still hope.
There's still hope.
It just
awareness and effort.
Awareness and effort.
To like incorporate some of these
strategies.
Statistic-ficing strategies.
Yeah, and it's about
finding that balance. Between like
striving for
excellence, but also like
recognize
knowing when good enough is.
When good enough
is actually good enough.
Is good enough. I think that's
a powerful, important message.
It's a powerful message.
Especially nowadays.
Because we're told to
do more,
be more, have more all the time.
All the time, but
sometimes happiness is about simplifying,
prioritizing,
and appreciating what you have.
Yeah, choosing to focus on those things that really matter.
Yeah,
the relationship,
the experiences, the connection.
Yeah,
and letting go of that need
to control
every single thing,
every little thing,
because you can't.
So why stress about it?
Right. So, as we wrap up our deep dive today into the paradox of choice.
We covered a lot.
We covered a lot of ground.
We talked about
the psychology of choice.
The psychology of choice, yeah.
The dangers of social comparison. The power of gratitude and self-compassion.
Yeah, and I think most importantly,
we learned
that we have more control.
What we think we do.
Over our own happiness.
Over our own happiness. So.
To choose wisely.
Choose wisely. Choose less often.
Choose less often.
And be present. Be present and grateful for the choices you've already made.
Exactly, because it's not about finding that like perfect state of happiness.
It's about embracing the journey.
It's about the journey.
With all its ups and downs.
All the messy, beautiful.
Chaos of life.
I love that, all right.
All right, well, until next time.
Happy choosing, everyone.
Happy choosing.